Professor Kyla stood on the observation deck watching Earth rotate slowly beneath the research station. Her 6 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep thought among the Zentari. The blue planet had fascinated her for decades, but today was different. Today the Galactic Confederation would vote on whether humans would be granted full membership. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Linda walked in carrying 2 steaming cups. She handed one to Kyla, who accepted it with a slight bow. "I thought you might need this," Linda said. "Earth coffee." "Your favorite?" Kyla inhaled the bitter aroma. Her sensory glands fluttered with pleasure. The humans had many flaws, but their beverages were extraordinary. "Big day." Professor Linda leaned against the railing, her eyes fixed on her homeworld. "It's strange to think the fate of Earth depends on a vote happening, thousands of light years away." Kyla sipped her coffee, careful not to burn her sensitive mouth membranes. "The vote is merely a formality. Your species has proven itself repeatedly. The recent defense of the Proxima colonies against the hive outbreak sealed your acceptance." Linda nodded, but her expression remained troubled. Since arriving at the Zentari Academy 5 years ago, she had served as the bridge between 2 worlds. The first human to study alien psychology, now the first human ambassador to the Galactic Confederation. Her journey had been remarkable. Professor Kyla had mentored Linda through it all. Their relationship had evolved from teacher and student to colleagues and finally to friends. Their friendship was unprecedented, a connection between species with vastly different evolutionary paths. The Confederation is concerned about the Mars Defense Initiative. Linda said suddenly, "I received a transmission this morning. They want assurances that Earth isn't developing weapons of mass destruction." Kyla turned all 6 eyes toward Linda. The Mars Defense Initiative was classified. Even she didn't have full access to the information. How did the Confederation learn of it? Linda shrugged. "I suspect the Drakari. Their intelligence network is extensive. They never forgave humans for the Phoenix Base incident." Kyla clicked her mandibles, a gesture of frustration. "Earth needs defenses. The hive almost reached your solar system last cycle." "If not for the Alliance fleets, I know," Linda interrupted. "But the Confederation Council sees weapons development as a sign that humans aren't ready for membership. They fear our history of violence, our unpredictability." The observation deck fell silent. Both women contemplated the blue sphere below. The cradle of humanity looked so peaceful from space. It's hard to imagine it as the death world that had forged such a complicated species. Linda broke the silence. "The Council requested your final assessment. Professor, your recommendation carries significant weight, especially with the Zentari delegates." Kyla had been dreading this moment. For 50 years, she had studied humans, their art, their wars, their love, their cruelty. She had compiled the most extensive xenopsychological profile of humanity in the galaxy. But could she truly understand them? Could any non-human? "What will you tell them?" Linda asked. "The truth." Kyla replied. Her inner membranes shifted to a deep purple, indicating serious intent, that humanity is dangerous, unpredictable, and emotionally volatile, but also that humanity is necessary. Linda raised an eyebrow. "Necessary." Kyla gestured toward the stars visible beyond Earth. "The Confederation has existed for 10,000 years, a marvel of cooperation and peace, but it grows stagnant, risk-averse, complacent. The hive would have overwhelmed the Proxima system if not for human intervention. Humans take risks others would never consider." The Zentari professor moved to the holographic display at the center of the observation deck. With a wave of her slender fingers, she activated the system. Images appeared showing human history, wars, disasters, exploration, triumph, scenes of terrible violence followed by incredible compassion. "This is why humans must join the Confederation," Kyla continued. "Humanity brings something essential, something the galaxy has forgotten. Fear transformed into courage, danger into opportunity, death into meaning." Linda watched the images, her face solemn. "One final test awaits Earth," she said quietly. "The Council wants proof that humans can overcome their tribal instincts. They need to see unified human leadership, not competing nations. Kyla had anticipated this. The Confederation operated on consensus. It could not comprehend Earth's divisive political systems. The concept of nations competing against each other seemed primitive, barbaric. That is why I requested your presence here, Linda Kyla said. This station orbits Earth, but exists in neutral space. You must convince Earth leaders to present a unified front during the final deliberations. Linda laughed without humor. You want me to unify Earth politicians? Impossible. They can barely agree on lunar mining rights. Kyla moved closer to her human friend. I have observed your species for 50 years. You fight among yourselves endlessly, but when faced with external threats, you unite with remarkable speed. Remember the climate accords of 2040, the pandemic alliance of 2031. When survival demands that humans overcome their differences. Linda considered this Earth's history was indeed filled with examples of unity in the face of existential threat. But those were crises. This was diplomacy. Professor Kyla. What happens? If the vote fails, Linda asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The professor hesitated. The Drakari have petitioned for a containment policy. Should Earth be denied membership, a blockade would be established. No human vessels permitted beyond Mars. No communication with other worlds. Humanity would be quarantined until deemed safe. Perhaps for centuries. Linda's eyes widened. They can't do that. They can and they will. Kyla replied. If I cannot convince them that humanity is ready, Earth will be isolated. The Drakari fear you. The Hive incident only increased their concern. When humans defeated a threat that had consumed 12 worlds before, Linda pushed away from the railing, pacing the deck. Her mind raced through possibilities, strategies, arguments that might sway the council. We have 12 hours before the final vote. Kyla said, the council awaits my report and your address. I must return to my quarters to prepare. As the professor moved toward the exit, Linda called after her. Why do you believe in us, Professor? After everything you've seen in human history, why trust us? Kyla paused, her tall form silhouetted against the doorway. Because you fear yet act anyway. That courage born of fear is unique in the galaxy. It makes you unpredictable, dangerous, but it also makes you the only species capable of facing what comes next. What comes next? Linda asked. Kyla did not answer. She simply nodded and left the observation deck. Linda alone now turned back to Earth, feeling the weight of responsibility. Her planet, its future, now rested partly on her shoulders. In her quarters, Kyla activated her secure communication array. She would submit her final report to the Confederation Council. Her recommendation would be clear. Humanity, despite its flaws, must join the galactic community. Not just for their sake, but for the survival of all sentient life. What she could not tell Linda, what no one outside the High Council knew, was that the Hive was merely the vanguard. Something far worse waited beyond the galactic rim. Something ancient and patient. Humanity, with its unique psychology forged on a death world, might be the galaxy's only hope. The professor began to record her message. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the galaxy, would be decided soon. Linda paced the conference room aboard the orbital station. Her reflection bounced back from the polished black table where 12 empty chairs awaited Earth's leaders. In less than an hour, representatives from the major power blocks would arrive. Their petty rivalries and political games might doom humanity to isolation. The thought made her stomach twist. The door slid open. Professor Kyla entered, her robes flowing around her tall frame. The Zentari looked tired. Her skin had dulled to a pale blue, an indication of stress among her species. Are they coming? Linda asked. Kyla nodded. 6 have confirmed, the others are deliberating. My contacts in the North American Union say President Diane will attend. She understands the stakes. Linda sighed. That leaves 5 major blocks unaccounted for. The African Confederation is essential. Their space program has advanced faster than any other in the past decade. The Zentari professor moved to the window, looking down at Earth. The massive solar arrays of the African space elevator glinted in the sunlight. Below it, the sprawling megacities of New Lagos and Kinshasa, powered the continent's economy. I have taken the liberty of inviting someone else, Kyla said quietly. Someone who might sway the undecided. Block's Linda raised an eyebrow. Who? Before Kyla could answer, an alert chimed. A shuttle was approaching. The representatives had arrived earlier than expected. Linda straightened her formal diplomatic uniform and took a deep breath. Everything now depended on her ability to unite these leaders. The conference room filled quickly. President Diane of the North American Union, first tall and imposing with silver hair and a military bearing. Next came Chancellor Helen of the European Coalition, followed by Premier Grace of the Australasian Alliance. Their faces were grim, understanding the gravity of the situation. Premier Kate of the South American Federation arrived with Director Rose of the Pan-Pacific Economic Zone. They nodded respectfully to Linda, but their eyes betrayed suspicion. Why had an academic been appointed as Earth's representative to the Confederation? Last to enter was Queen Mary of the African Confederation. Her presence surprised Linda. The African ruler rarely left her continent. Preferring to send ambassadors, the Queen wore traditional garments blended with modern technology. Her ceremonial headpiece contained communication arrays and translation systems. Linda waited until all were seated before speaking. I thank you for coming on such short notice. The Galactic Confederation votes in 10 hours on Earth's membership. This may be our only opportunity to join the interstellar community. President Diane leaned forward. We understand the opportunity, Ambassador Linda, but we also understand the risks. The Confederation demands unified governance. How can we abandon our sovereignty? The other leaders murmured agreement. Earth had never known true political unity. Its diversity of governments had been both a strength and weakness. Linda activated the holographic display. Above the table appeared images of the hive attack on Proxima Centauri, the insectoid aliens swarming over human colonies, the desperate defense, the casualties. The hive nearly reached Sol. She said, every person in this room was briefed on how close Earth came to invasion. If not for the Alliance fleets, we know the threat interrupted. Director Rose, we also know that Earth developed the Mars Defense Initiative without Confederation approval. The Zentari professor here reported our weapons research. All eyes turned accusingly toward Kyla. The alien remained calm. I reported nothing. The Drakari discovered your program through their own intelligence networks. The tension in the room thickened. Queen Mary spoke, her voice cutting through the hostility. The question is not how the Confederation learned of our defenses. The question is whether Earth will stand together or fall divided. Linda nodded gratefully to the African leader. The Queen understood what was at stake. Chancellor Helen shook her head. The Confederation demands we dismantle our independent military forces. They want a unified Earth government under their oversight. We would lose everything that makes us human, would we? Linda challenged. Or would we finally become what humanity has always dreamed of? One people united not by borders or ideologies, but by our shared humanity. The representatives exchanged glances. Unconvinced, Linda could feel the opportunity slipping away. These leaders had spent their careers defending their bloc's interests. They could not easily abandon centuries of division. The doors opened again. All heads turned. A small woman entered, elderly but standing straight with dignity. Her face lined with age, her eyes sharp with intelligence. Dr. Olivia Martinez. Premier Grace whispered in recognition. The legendary scientist who had defied the Drakari at Phoenix Base 50 years earlier nodded in greeting. I apologize for my lateness. The lunar shuttle was delayed. Kyla had invited Dr. Martinez, the scientist who had become a symbol of human courage against alien aggression. Her presence changed the energy in the room. Even these powerful leaders seemed humbled. Dr. Martinez took the empty seat. At the table's head, I was there when humanity first faced the stars. Hostility, she began, her voice soft but carrying authority. I looked into alien eyes and saw fear. Fear of what humans might become. The room was silent now. Every person hanging on. Her words. The Drakari feared us. Then she continued. They fear us now. Not because we are violent, though we are not. Because we are unpredictable, though we are. They fear us, because unlike any species they had encountered, we refused to surrender even when victory was impossible. Linda watched the leaders' faces, seeing the impact of Dr. Martinez's words. The elderly scientist commanded respect that transcended political divisions. I have spent 50 years studying alien civilizations. Dr. Martinez continued. The Zentari, the Drakari, the Marinus, all 10,000 years more advanced than humanity. But they lack something essential. Something Earth forged in us through hardship, through survival on a world that challenged us at every turn. And what is that? President Diane asked. Adaptability, Dr. Martinez replied. The capacity to change, to evolve our thinking. The Confederation species modified their genetics to remove fear. We embraced it, learned from it. The Drakari eliminated internal conflict. We channeled it into progress. They fear us because we are what they cannot be. Evolving, dynamic, unpredictable. The scientist rose slowly, moving to the window. The stars await humanity. We can reach them together or remain trapped on our beautiful, dangerous world, squabbling over resources until the next threat arrives, and it will arrive with or without Confederation protection. Queen Mary stood joining Dr. Martinez at the window. For 1,000 generations, my ancestors looked to the stars, she said. Now the stars look back at us. They judge us not by our divisions but by our potential. One by one, the other leaders joined them at the window. Earth spread below them, beautiful, united from this distance. Linda felt hope rising. This was the moment Earth could transform. The divisions that had defined human history might finally heal. Dr. Martinez turned to the assembled leaders. The Confederation vote happens soon. We must present humanity as one voice. One people. Will Earth stand united? The leaders exchanged. Long looks, centuries of rivalry and distrust weighed in the balance. President Diane spoke first. The North American Union will support unification, for this purpose only until the vote is decided. Chancellor Helen nodded. The European coalition agrees. Conditional unity. One by one, the others consented, not fully committed but willing to present a unified front to the Confederation. Linda caught Kyla's gaze. The Zentari professors' inner membranes glowed with approval. The first step had been achieved. Earth would speak as one voice. But Professor Kyla knew what the others did not. The real test awaited. The Confederation had one final trial for humanity. A test that would prove whether humans truly deserved to join the galactic community. As the leaders began drafting their unified statement, Linda noticed Dr. Martinez and Kyla exchange a significant glance. What were they not telling her? What final challenge awaited Earth? The Confederation Council chamber was unlike anything Linda had ever seen. The vast circular room extended upward for hundreds of meters, with viewing galleries spiraling toward a distant ceiling. Each tier held representatives from different worlds, some humanoid, others utterly alien in form. The air smelled of strange spices and ozone, filled with the murmur of 1,000 languages being simultaneously translated. Linda stood at the central podium, Earth leaders arranged behind her. Their unified presence had caused a stir among the alien delegates. The Drakari representatives in particular seemed disturbed, their scaled crests rising in agitation. Professor Kyla stood to one side, her formal academic robes marking her as a neutral scientific advisor. She gave Linda an encouraging nod. The High Counselor of the Confederation, a gaseous being contained in a transparent cylinder, floated to the center of the chamber. Silence fell as its melodic voice filled the space. We convene to consider the application of Earth humanity for membership in the Galactic Confederation. The voice was neither male nor female, but something else entirely. We have heard testimony from experts, studied human history, observed their development. The question before us is simple yet profound. Is humanity ready to join our community of species? Linda took a deep breath. This was the moment her entire diplomatic career had built toward. She stepped forward. Honored counselors, I stand before you as a representative of Earth united for the first time in our history. Each leader behind me governs a significant portion of our world. Each has agreed to speak with one voice on this historic day. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Drakari delegation conferred, urgently among themselves. Linda continued. For thousands of years, humans fought each other, divided by geography, ideology, and resources. Our history contains terrible violence alongside remarkable progress. Our path to the stars has not been straight or easy. She paused, letting her words sink in. Yet when faced with external threats, humans unite. When the Hive attacked Proxima, we defended not just our colonies but Confederation worlds threatened by the incursion. Our ships arrived first. Our soldiers held the line. Our scientists developed the pathogen that ultimately repelled the Hive. A representative from the Marinus water worlds rose, their tentacles waving for attention. The human speaks truth. Their defense of Proxima saved millions of our colonists. But they developed weapons without approval. Their Mars Defense Initiative violates Confederation protocols. President Diane stepped forward, joining Linda. The Mars Defense Initiative was created after the Hive attack. She stated, "Our world has faced extinction repeatedly throughout our history, from our own weapons, climate disasters, asteroid impacts. We survived because we prepared for the worst while hoping for the best." The High Counselor floated closer. The Confederation requires unity of purpose, commitment to peaceful exploration. We cannot admit a species that might fracture into competing factions or develop weapons capable of threatening member worlds. Dr. Martinez now moved to stand beside Linda, her small figure commanding attention despite her age-honored counsel she began 50 years ago. I faced the Drakari at Phoenix Base. I showed them humanity would not surrender. I demonstrated our determination. All eyes turned to the Drakari delegation. Their leader, a massive, reptilian female, rose. She addressed the council directly. "The humans are dangerous," she hissed. "They survive a world that should have killed them. Their bodies are fragile, their lives short, yet they accomplish in decades what takes other species centuries. Their weapons technology advances at an alarming rate. Their Mars Defense Initiative includes technology beyond their development. Level accusations flew from the Drakari delegation. The humans had stolen technology. They had violated quarantine protocols. They remained divided despite appearances. Their inclusion would destabilize the Confederation." Linda listened as the carefully constructed unity threatened to collapse. She looked to Kyla for guidance. The professor gave an almost imperceptible nod. It was time for the truth. "Honored counselors," Linda called out, cutting through the growing chaos. "The Drakari representative speaks some truth. The Mars Defense Initiative does include advanced technology. Because 50 years ago, when the Drakari threatened Phoenix Base, they left something behind." The chamber fell silent. When the Drakari ships retreated, Linda continued. "Their commander abandoned a wounded crew member. Dr. Martinez and her team saved that crew member's life. In gratitude, he shared technology defensive only. He recognized in humans something the Drakari could not admit. We are not just dangerous, we are compassionate even to our enemies." The Drakari delegation erupted in angry shouts. Their leader demanded the wounded crew members, name challenging the Story Queen. Mary stepped forward, activating a small projection device. The image showed younger versions of Dr. Martinez and her team treating a badly injured Drakari soldier. "His name was Commander Vex," she said. "According to our records, he later became a leading advocate for peaceful contact with Earth within the Drakari Empire." The Drakari delegation fell silent, their leader unable to deny the evidence. The High Counselor considered this revelation most interesting, but it does not address our central concern. Is humanity unified or merely presenting the appearance of unity? Will these leaders truly cooperate or return to competition once membership is secured? Linda looked at the Earth leaders behind her. She could not honestly guarantee their continued cooperation. Politics on Earth remained complicated, divisive. Before she could answer, the chamber darkened, emergency lights activated. A communication officer rushed to the High Counselor, conveying urgent information. "Honored delegates, we have received a priority alert." The High Counselor announced, "The Hive has returned in greater numbers. They have bypassed our outer defenses and approached the Sol system. Earth lies directly in their path. Gasps and cries filled the chamber. The hive had been defeated, pushed back to the galactic rim. How had they returned so quickly with greater strength? The Earth leaders huddled together. President Diane addressed the council. The Mars Defense Initiative was designed for exactly this threat. We can activate it immediately, establish a defensive line at Neptune. The Drakari leader scoffed. A handful of human ships against a hive swarm? Impossible. Even our fleets could not stop them at Proxima without heavy losses. Dr. Martinez stepped forward. The initiative is not just ships, she revealed. It's a network of automated defenses leveraging the gravity wells of our outer planets. Each component seems insignificant, but together they form a system capable of disrupting hive communication patterns. We developed it based on research from the Phoenix Base incident. The council erupted in debate. Should Earth be allowed to activate untested defenses? Would it be enough? Should Confederation fleets be committed to a system not yet formally admitted to membership? Linda watched as the unified human front began to fracture under pressure. Each leader now considered their block's specific interests. Professor Kyla finally broke her silence, addressing the entire council. This is the test, she announced, her voice cutting through the chaos. This threat is the final evaluation of humanity. The chamber fell silent. All eyes on the Zentari professor. The High Council arranged this scenario. Kyla continued. The hive is not attacking. There is no emergency. This elaborate deception was designed to test how humans respond under pressure, whether their unity would hold, whether they would act selflessly to protect not just themselves but others. Linda stared at her, mentor in shock. The entire crisis was fabricated. A test. The Earth leader's expression shifted from fear to anger. They had been manipulated, deceived. The High Counselor confirmed Kyla's revelation. The professor speaks truth. This was indeed the final test. We needed to observe humanity under stress to see their true nature. Linda felt betrayal rising within her. Kyla had known, had participated in the deception. But before she could speak, President Diane stepped forward. If this was a test, she addressed, the Council then know this. Had the threat been real, Earth would have activated our defenses to protect not just our world, but all worlds in the hive's path. We would have sacrificed our technology, our secrecy, even our lives to defend the Confederation. That has not yet accepted us. That is humanity's nature. We protect even those who deceive us. The chamber grew quiet as the counselors considered her words. Queen Mary joined her. Our unity is not perfect, she admitted. It is struggled for, argued over, impermanent. But when survival is threatened, we stand together. That is the gift Earth brings to your Confederation. Not perfect harmony, but the strength that comes from diversity, challenged by adversity, forged in the fire of a death world. The High Counselor floated in a slow circle, considering. We must vote. The question before us remains, is humanity ready? The vote took hours. Each of the 300 member species had to register their decision. Some species communicated through color changes, others through pheromones or electromagnetic pulses. The process was deliberate, ceremonial, ancient. The fate of Earth hung in the balance. Linda waited with the Earth delegation in a small antechamber. The initial anger at the deception had faded, replaced by nervous anticipation. President Diane paced the room while Queen Mary sat in meditation. Chancellor Helen and the others spoke in hushed tones. Professor Kyla had been asked to remain with the council as they deliberated. Her scientific assessment of humanity would factor heavily in the final decision. Dr. Martinez approached Linda, sitting beside her on a curved bench. The elderly scientist seemed calm despite everything. You knew, Linda accused, her voice low. The test. The fake hive attack. You knew and didn't warn us. Dr. Martinez smiled gently. I suspected. I told Kyla 50 years ago that the Confederation would never admit humans without seeing us under pressure. They fear our potential for violence. They needed to see our potential for unity. Linda shook her head, still processing the elaborate deception. Why didn't you tell me? Because Your reaction needed to be genuine. The scientist patted Linda's hand. Your honesty, your passion for Earth, these could not be faked. The council would have detected deception. The door slid open. Professor Kyla entered, her expression unreadable. The Earth leaders gathered around her, anxious for news. The council has reached a decision, she announced. They will render it formally in 1 hour. President Diane stepped forward. What is the decision? Professor Kyla hesitated. I am not permitted to say. The announcement must come from the High Counselor. Director Rose slammed her hand against the wall. This is absurd. Earth unified as requested. We passed their test, yet still, they treat us like children. The Zentari professor turned all 6 eyes toward the angry human. That reaction, Director Rose, is precisely why some council members voted against Earth admission. Your species resorts to physical displays of emotion. Your responses can be unpredictable. The room fell silent. The Earth leaders, suddenly, aware how their behavior might be perceived by alien species with different standards of conduct. Linda broke the uncomfortable silence. Can you tell us anything, Professor? About the deliberations, the concerns. Kyla considered her request. The Drakari delegation argued strongly against admission. They presented historical evidence of human conflicts, atrocities, wars. They believe humanity remains too volatile for membership, and the others, Linda pressed. The Marinus supported Earth. The professor continued. They remember human sacrifices during the Proxima defense. The scientific guilds were divided. Some see human innovation as valuable. Others fear your rapid technological advancement. Queen. Mary spoke, her voice measured. The vote count. Professor Kyla hesitated again. I can say only that it was not unanimous. There were abstentions, notable ones. The Earth delegation exchanged glances. This was not encouraging. A divided vote suggested conditional membership at best, rejection at worst. The hour passed, slowly. When finally they were summoned back to the council chamber, Linda felt her heart racing. The most important diplomatic moment in human history had arrived. The chamber had changed. The tiers were now illuminated by soft blue light. The species, representatives stood or floated or coiled in their respective places. Silent, watchful. The High Counselor hovered at the center, its crystalline container catching the light. The Council has voted on the petition of Earth for membership in the Galactic Confederation, it announced, the melodious voice echoing. We have considered historical records, scientific testimony, the defense of Proxima, the Mars Initiative, the responses during our final test. Linda held her breath. The Earth leaders stood tall, behind her, united, at least in this moment. Earth has been denied full membership. The words fell like stones. Linda felt her knees weaken. President Diane's hand gripped her shoulder in support. The other leaders maintained their composure, though their disappointment was evident. Before protests could begin, the High Counselor continued. However, Earth has been granted provisional status. A new designation created specifically for your world. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. This was unprecedented. Provisional status did not exist in Confederation protocols. What does this mean? Linda asked, her voice steady despite her shock. The High Counselor explained. Earth would not receive full voting rights immediately. Humans would be permitted limited expansion to their existing colonies. Technology exchange would be closely monitored. Human ships could travel Confederation trade routes with authorization. This is not membership, President Diane objected. This is supervised probation. Perhaps the High Counselor acknowledged, but it is not isolation. The Drakari proposed quarantine. The Council rejected that proposal. Earth has proven itself capable of cooperation when necessary. Your provisional status can be upgraded to full membership in 50 years if conditions are met. Linda recognized the compromise. Neither acceptance nor rejection, but something in between. A path forward, albeit a restricted one. Queen Mary stepped forward. What conditions must be met for full membership? The High Counselor listed them. Earth must maintain its unified diplomatic approach to Confederation matters. The Mars Defense Initiative must be placed under joint Human Confederation oversight. Human expansion beyond current colonies required approval. These terms are one-sided, Chancellor Helen objected. What guarantees do we receive? What protections? The chamber grew tense. The question challenged Confederation authority. The High Counselor paused, considering valid concerns. In exchange, the Confederation will establish a permanent defense fleet in the Sol system. Joint Human and Confederation Cruise Technology Exchange will prioritize medical and agricultural advancements. Earth scientists will join research teams throughout Confederation space. Linda recognized the significance of these concessions. The defense fleet would protect Earth. The technology would benefit humanity. The scientific positions would give humans access to advanced knowledge. What say you, representatives of Earth? The High Counselor asked. Do you accept these terms? The Earth leaders conferred quickly. Time was short. A decision needed to be made. Linda turned to Professor Kyla, seeking guidance. The Zentari gave a subtle nod. This was the best outcome possible. The professor had advocated strongly for these terms. President Diane stepped forward. Earth accepts provisional status. She announced formally, we will work to meet all conditions for full membership. We thank the Council for this opportunity. The chamber filled, with the sounds of hundreds of species signaling acknowledgement, some approving, others clearly disappointed. The Drakari delegation left immediately, their dissatisfaction obvious. As the formal proceedings concluded, Linda found herself surrounded by Confederation representative species she had only read about. Now approached, offering congratulations, warnings, advice. The diplomatic dance had begun. Professor Kyla made her way through the crowd to Linda. The Zentari seemed tired, but satisfied. You did well, she told her former student, better than I expected. The provisional status was not my first choice, but it offers a path forward. Linda studied her mentor. You pushed for this compromise, didn't you? When full membership failed. Kyla nodded. The vote for full membership was close. Very close. But the Drakari coalition held firm. Their fear of humanity runs deep. Perhaps with reason, Dr. Martinez joined them, leaning heavily on a walking staff. This is a victory, she said, despite appearances. 50 years ago, the Drakari wanted us destroyed. Now we stand in the Confederation chamber as provisional members. Progress comes slowly to ancient institutions. Linda looked around the chamber, still processing everything that had happened. Earth had a foot in the door, a chance to prove itself worthy of full acceptance. The path would not be easy. The conditions were restrictive, but humanity had faced worse. Odds. Professor Kyla touched Linda's arm lightly. I must return to the academy. My research continues. My report to the Council is complete, but my work understanding humans never ends. Before Linda could respond, an aide approached. The High Counselor requests your presence. Ambassador Linda. A private audience? Such an invitation was rare, unprecedented for a newly admitted provisional member. Linda looked to Kyla for explanation, but the professor seemed equally surprised. Go, the Zentari urged. This is significant. Linda followed the aide through winding corridors away from the public, chambers deeper into the heart of the Confederation headquarters. What could the High Counselor want? Why a private meeting? As she walked, Linda considered the future that awaited Earth, the challenges and opportunities of provisional status, the ongoing struggle to maintain Earth unity when the immediate threat had passed, the resistance from the Drakari, the technology exchange, the defense fleet. Something told her the High Counselor's summons would change everything again. Humanity had survived the vote, but the real test was just beginning. The High Counselor's private chamber was unlike the Grand Council room. No spectacle or ceremony here, just a simple space with curved walls that shimmered with subtle patterns of light. The gaseous being floated in its cylindrical container near the center. A single chair, the only furniture, waited for. Linda, please be seated. Ambassador. the melodic voice invited. Linda sat feeling strangely calm, despite the unusual circumstances. The High Counselor had been neither hostile nor particularly supportive during the proceedings. Its true position on Earth membership remained unclear. "You wonder why I summoned you," the being stated. "Not a question, an observation." "Yes, Counselor," Linda admitted. The chamber darkened. Suddenly, the walls came alive, with images, stars, planets, systems. A map of the galaxy, Linda realized. But unlike any map she had seen, portions were marked with pulsing red indicators. "What you see is classified beyond your provisional status," the High Counselor said. "Yet I show it to you nonetheless." Linda studied the map. The red indicators formed a pattern moving inward from the galactic rim, slowly, but steadily approaching Confederation space, the Hive. Linda guessed. Not a simulation this time. The High Counselor moved closer. "The test scenario we created was based on real intelligence. The Hive has evolved, adapted. They gather beyond our detection network. Their numbers grow, their tactics change. The simulation was false. The threat is real." Linda felt a chill, despite the warmth of the chamber. "How long?" she asked. "Perhaps 20. Earth years, perhaps less," the Counselor replied. "Our scientists cannot predict precisely. The Hive operates on evolutionary timescales, not political ones, but they remember. Proxima. They remember the pathogen. They will come prepared." "Why tell me this?" Linda asked. "Why not the Earth leaders? The Confederation Defense Command?" The Counselor drifted in a slow circle. "The Confederation is 10,000 years old. Ambassador Linda, a magnificent achievement of cooperation between vastly different species. But age brings rigidity, caution, conservatism. The Dracari and their allies control our defense policy. They prefer fortification over innovation, tradition over adaptation." Linda began to understand. The vote. The compromise. The private meeting. They were connected. "You supported Earth's membership," she realized. "Yes." The Counselor's gas form swirled within its container. "Humanity is young, volatile, creative. The Hive that comes is not the Hive we knew. Your species thinks differently, sees patterns others miss, takes risks others avoid. The Confederation needs humanity. Not just your courage, but your fear. Your fear drives innovation." The Zentari professor understood this. "So the provisional status," Linda began. "A compromise I engineered," the High Counselor finished, "better than rejection. Enough to give humanity access, influence. The Dracari would never accept full membership. But they could not deny the evidence from Proxima. Your species proved its value." Linda stood moving to the galactic map. The red indicators seemed to pulse more urgently now that she understood their meaning. If the Hive truly returned in force, the Confederation's standing defensive policies would fail. The threat required new thinking, adaptation. Human thinking. The Dracari don't know about this, she guessed, studying the map. They voted against us without knowing the real threat. The High Counselor made a sound like chimes tinkling. "Some know, most do not. The intelligence is compartmentalized, even within the High Council. Fear of panic, concern about preparedness. The Dracari General Staff believes the Hive threat contained manageable. They are wrong." Linda turned to face the alien being. "Why tell me? Why not, Professor?" "Kyla. She has credibility, influence." The Counselor moved closer. "Professor Kyla is respected but known to favor humanity. Her warnings would be dismissed as bias. You, Ambassador Linda, are something new. A human with Confederation credentials, access to places humans have never gone. Knowledge humans have never had. The implications were clear. Linda would serve as more than just Earth's ambassador. She would be the High Counselor's agent within the system, working to prepare the Confederation for a threat most of its members didn't know existed." "And if I refuse?" she asked. The High Counselor dimmed slightly. "The Dracari proposal for Earth quarantine remains. Their influence grows. If the Hive strikes before humanity is integrated into our defense, Planning all species suffer. The Confederation, the Drakari Earth. All fall, Linda studied the galactic map again. 20 years. Perhaps less time enough to build influence, convince the skeptics, prepare defenses, but only if she started immediately. Only if Earth maintained its precarious unity. I need resources, she said. Research access, priority communications with Earth leadership. Granted, the counselor replied instantly. You will hold diplomatic rank equivalent to a senior council member. Though, publicly your position remains Earth's provisional representative. Linda nodded, understanding the arrangement. She would appear to be simply an ambassador while actually working directly with the highest levels of Confederation leadership. Her true mission hidden even from her own people, and Professor Kyla. Linda asked, "What will you tell her?" "The truth." The counselor's voice softened. "She has earned it." Her 50 years studying humanity led to this moment. Her recommendation, despite the Drakari objections, carried significant weight. She will continue her research with new purpose. New urgency. Linda considered the weight of responsibility now placed upon her shoulders. She had come to the Zentari Academy 5 years ago as a student, hoping to understand alien psychology. Now she stood at the center of a galactic crisis, the human face of Earth's integration into the Confederation. The secret agent of preparations for a war most didn't know was coming. "I accept," she said finally. "For Earth, for the Confederation." The High Counselor brightened perceptibly. "Return to your delegation, Ambassador. They await news of this meeting. Tell them you have been granted special diplomatic access to facilitate Earth's integration. As provisional representative, you will travel extensively throughout Confederation space." Linda understood the cover story. She would use her diplomatic position to assess preparations, build alliances, identify vulnerabilities, all while appearing to simply represent Earth's interests. "There is one more thing," the counselor added. "The Mars Defense Initiative. Your leaders believe it a defensive system. It is more." Linda waited as the being continued. The technology shared by the wounded Drakari soldier was not merely defensive. The High Counselor explained. Properly developed, it creates a disruption field that affects hive neural networks. We believe it may be the key to stopping their advance, not just protecting Earth, but saving the Confederation. So the deception runs both ways. Linda realized Earth had not revealed the full capabilities of the Mars Initiative. The Confederation, specifically the High Counselor, had guided its development through carefully leaked information. The games within games made Linda's head spin, but she recognized the necessity. Politics between worlds required subtlety, deception, careful management of information. "I understand," she said, "and I will ensure the initiative continues development with proper resources." "Very good, Ambassador." The High Counselor moved toward the chamber door. "Our meeting concludes. The Council expects you to depart for Earth within 3 cycles to brief your leaders. Officially, you have achieved a diplomatic victory. Provisional status is better than most expected. Your career advances. You return in 1 month to establish the Earth's embassy." Linda nodded, following the being out. The cover story would hold Earth would celebrate the provisional membership as a victory. The true work would happen quietly behind the scenes. As she walked back toward the Earth delegation, Linda felt both the weight of her new responsibility and strange exhilaration. Humanity had a chance not just to join the galactic community, but to save it. The species that had evolved on a death world facing constant threats had developed exactly the mindset needed to face the Hive Professor. Kyla waited outside the council chambers, her 6 eyes studying Linda carefully as she approached. The Zentari had known the counselor's plan. Linda realized perhaps had helped design it. The professor's 50 years studying humanity had led to this moment. "Did the High Counselor show you the map?" Kyla asked quietly. Linda nodded, keeping her voice low. 20 years, perhaps less, the professor replied. "The hive adapts faster than predicted. I have studied their evolution patterns. The timeline shortens." The 2 women walked slowly toward the waiting Earth delegation, Linda processing everything that had happened in the past hours. The vote. The provisional status. The secret mission. The approaching threat Earth fears. Kyla said, suddenly breaking the silence. Earth fears, yet acts anyway. That is why the High Counselor believes in your species. That is why I have dedicated my life to understanding. Yours fear transformed into courage, into action. That is what the galaxy needs now. Linda thought of her homeworld visible from the Confederation station. Beautiful blue, fragile. Yet the species it had produced would now work to save civilizations. Thousands of years more advanced. Professor Kyla, I need to return to your academy. Linda said, a research position. A way to continue our work together. The Zentari nodded. The academy doors remain open to you. We have much to do. Little time. As they rejoined the Earth delegation, Linda put on a diplomatic smile. The leaders surrounded her, eager for news of her private audience with the High Counselor. She gave them the cover story, watching their reactions. Relief, pride, suspicion, acceptance.